Hello, my name is Stacy Samoe, and I'm someone who transitioned from a non-technical background to a technical background, specifically data analytics. And I was able to grow all the way from entry-level data analyst to senior data analyst, and now a strategy and analytics lead in about 3 years. So in less than 3 years, yeah. So what are we doing here today? We're just going to talk about my journey, like how did I essentially go from zero to becoming a data analyst, and not just a data analyst, but a strategy and analytics lead. So I have my notebook here to just make sure that I don't miss out on any key points that I plan to communicate to you. So in case you see me like look down, just know I'm looking at my notebook to just reference like the various points that I want to make sure like all this knowledge and insights come your way. So let's just summarize my story a bit here. It took me about a year to just learn the various skills that I believe were necessary for me to be able to land my role. And then after that, it took me about 4 to 6 months to land my first offer. So it actually took me 4 months to land my first offer. And within like the 6 month, I'd already started the role in question. And of course, what is called offers will continue coming, but I decided to stick with that one offer that I got, which happened to be a remote first role. And then we'll also just talk a bit about like how did I go from like landing this role as someone who came from a non-technical background to just growing as quick as I did. So just coming from an entry-level data analyst, I moved around a bit. So I started off in credit risk. I worked a bit with growth and marketing. I did some pricing analytics. I became a senior data analyst. I was a senior data analyst, individual contributor, senior data analyst manager, and eventually became a strategy and analytics lead. So I'll introduce that specific part a bit, but I'll have like a more a dedicated video to just talk about like how to succeed after you land your first data role. And yeah, basically, that's it. And yeah. Let's get into it and let's start with like my 1 year. So that 1 year that I really focused in terms of like learning the various skills, what was I doing? And before I even get to that 1 year, something that I want to say is like taking a decision is very important. Like deciding like this is what I want and actually sticking to it is important. And of course, me taking the decision, it did not happen in that 1 year. So I started actively thinking, okay, rather getting curious about like what is this data analytics? What is this data science? Actually, at that point, I think I was just calling it, I don't even know, I don't remember what I was calling it because I don't remember what I was calling it because honestly, it didn't even, what I was calling it didn't exist because I was in finance then. I was particularly in a risk department, and we did used to like do a lot of data analysis, data cleaning, just being that department that is really making sure that the data that is being consumed by the rest of the company is accurate, it's in the state that it needs to be for like various departments to make like good decisions. Yeah. So and that was like, I don't know, I'd say it used to take a huge part of like my day to day, but it was there was more to my role because I was like in risk finance. Yeah. So I was in risk in finance specifically. So I also did a lot of like analyzing of financial statements and whatnot, analyzing like repayment schedules and whatnot. Like there was a lot that my role was about. And I was particularly keen on just becoming someone in the finance space who's like technically savvy, who's like data savvy. Keeping in mind all these words I'm using right now, I did not know. Now I do, and I'm hoping, unlike me, like you're learning my story, and it just makes you smoother in terms of like what you need to do, and also the lingo that you need to like go in being aware of. Yeah. So at that point, I was just curious, and I remember I attempted CFA. So for people in finance, the Chartered Financial Analyst, I did CFA level one. And believe it or not, my journey into doing CFA is what actually made me go into data. Because I remember I chose the path to like get a tutor, yeah. And it was like we were like a group of people who were being tutored by this guy, yeah. And this was someone who had worked in Wall Street, yeah. So he's like Kenyan, FYI, I am Kenyan. So he's like Kenyan, and he had worked in Wall Street, and he decided to come back to Kenya, yeah. And he would always tell us, oh, the way you're here, like doing these calculations, whether you're calculating net present value or whatever it is you're calculating, you're here struggling with your calculators, and we do a bit of it on like Google Sheets or Excel, yeah. He was like, ah, no, in the real world, you'll actually use code. And I was like, what is this code? And that's when I went down the rabbit hole. So, not to deviate from my story, but just taking the decision to like get like data curious and want to gain all the skills in data analytics. It did not happen within that 1 year. It was like months. I could even dare say like 2 years and a half or 1 year and a half of just thinking through like what do I want with my career. And once I took the decision, like I stuck with it. Because why that is very important for you to take that decision and you to stick with it is because the journey into tech can be very tempting. Because like as I was learning about data analytics, I came across like data science. I learned about data engineering. Then I'm like, oh, there are people called software engineers. Oh, there are people who are called product managers and designers. And then to some extent, we are all motivated by like what level of compensation you'd get. Like, I personally do genuinely enjoy what I do, and I'm like super passionate about my work. Like, yeah, just know the pay matters, but I'm genuinely passionate about like the problem that I'm solving. Yeah. So like in that confusion of like, yeah, maybe designers get paid more, maybe developers get paid more, maybe product managers get paid more. Like you can get tempted to like deviate in terms of like what you had planned to do. So hence why I emphasize like taking a decision in terms of like what you need to do is very important. Because when you take a decision and you make a plan, you're more likely to reach you're more likely to reach your destination, which in this case is like landing an opportunity over like not really taking a decision. It will take you longer and there'll be a lot of confusion. So like my first advice to you is take a decision and stick with it. Stick with it and say 80-90%, because there's certain things you might need to be flexible on. Of course, you'll utilize like your judgment at that point with whatever is going on in your life. And sometimes the plans can change, but take a decision. Take a decision. So yeah, I took the decision that for me, it's going to be data. Yeah. And honestly, at that point, I didn't know which data. Is it going to be data science? Is it going to be data analytics? Is it going to be data engineering? I didn't know, but at least I knew it's data. So I was not going to be distracted by anything to do with design, UI, UX. I was not going to be distracted by anything to do with becoming a product manager or anything to do with becoming a developer. I was like, for me, it is data. So when I took the decision that it's data, I tried a bit of self-learning and it was just not working for me. It's just not working for me, especially on the coding side of it. Because remember, data has like three bits, yeah? Whether you're going into engineering, analytics, or data science, it has three bits. So like there's the technical side, there's the math and the statistics side, and then there's like the storytelling and data visualization bit, yeah? Though some roles, whether you decide to go data science, data engineering, or data analytics, will lean more on like one of those aspects. So coding, I'd say, is common across all, though engineers and data scientists like will code more heavy. Yeah. Data visualization and storytelling is also common across all three, but it's heavier on the like data analytics route. And then math and statistics is again important across all, like all of them will do some level of like mathematics and statistical concept, but it is heaviest for data scientists, and data engineers also you do use some statistical concepts and like mathematical concepts. And then also analytics do like data analysts also use it. So if you're on board the analytics side, but not as much as like a data scientist, yeah. So of course, my 1 year was about those three things, like strengthening my coding skill. Actually, not strengthening, they were non-existent. So yeah, just working on my coding skills, strengthening my math and statistics skills. So again, just coming from like a business, I did business administration with a concentration in finance. Like math and statistics is something you do apply as someone who's practicing in finance, in risk. So for that, it was just more of strengthening that. And then, of course, working on like my data visualization and storytelling, which is also not something like very new to me, but now in the data field, in the data industry, like it just came all together like very beautifully, and then working on my coding skills. Yeah. So of course I focused more on coding because that was like my weakest spot. And I tried the self-learning route. It just didn't work out. Like I would find all these random free courses, tutorials, and I was just not clicking. I'm like, what is this? Like, should I be learning Java? Should I be learning Python? But I didn't even know that something like SQL exists. I actually learned SQL when I decided to enroll into bootcamp. And I actually do appreciate the bootcamp. I don't know if I would, I honestly don't know if I would recommend a bootcamp to like everyone else. Like for me, it's more about a community than necessarily a bootcamp. Because for me, what that bootcamp gave me was a community. So I got this bunch of people who are like who had a shared goal, who had a shared vision from different backgrounds. So we had people who actually did like very technical degrees. So someone probably did like software engineering, or someone did like mathematics in undergraduate, or someone did, I don't know, business IT or something, and they were just coming to this boot camp for like the practicality. Because like if you're Kenyan like me, you'll know a lot of our what is it called, our undergraduate are not the most practical. There are some schools and some programs that are heavy on the practical bit, but not all of them. Yeah. So like it was a lot of people coming from programs that are not very practical, and now they got to get to this boot camp and actually like code and actually see things like R in action, Python in action, SQL in action. So meeting all these people with like a shared vision was like really amazing, because I really got to learn a lot from them. Like technically, like these people were my community. Anything I was not sure of, I had people to ask. They understood. I'm not just asking for asking, and I'm not asking for like just teach me SQL or teach me R or teach me Python for the sake of it's like teach me R or teach me Python relevant to data analytics. So I went to that boot camp and it worked so well for me. And that boot camp was actually like all rounded. Like I loved the community, but they were also very big in terms of like working on our communication skills and working on like our CVs and like how to sell yourself. Yeah. So I appreciated that space, and that space is just what gave me like a very strong foundation in terms of what I needed. Yeah. And that bootcamp, I think it lasted like 6 months. Meanwhile, I did this in 2020. Yeah. So I might not remember everything freshly, but yeah, I did it full time for 6 months straight, every day between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., 5:30. I had like materials, because it was very it was not self-paced per se. It was like, I don't know if I can call it self-driven, because they'd give you the material and it's up to you to read. So you had something to read like Monday to Friday, and then you'd get into your groups, and then you had all these tasks, and then we'd meet every morning at 8 o'clock to just unblock. So the requirement was like you study with your peers between 8 to, was it 5 or 5:30? But you guys, I had no life. Like, I remember my mom used to come to my room because I'd even forget to eat, and my mom would always bring me food, and she would always be like, allow me to use Swahili. Mtoto wangu, hata kama ndo ni masomo, itakumaliza. Meaning, even if it's studying, it's going to finish you. Because imagine, like, I need to know what a notebook is, like now, like Jupyter Notebook or Google Colab. I didn't know what that is. I didn't even know you were supposed to run. Like I remember, typical learning how to code Hello World, and then you get the output. Like we were given that. And remember, this bootcamp was remote, yeah. So you kind of do a lot on your own. You ask questions, you jump on sessions. So I didn't even know I was supposed to press the thing that runs the code. I didn't. I didn't know. So yeah, imagine coming from that to like finishing like data exploratory, so data cleaning projects, then data exploration projects, and then doing data cleaning plus data exploration, and then starting to build machine learning models. Like, it was at interesting times, but interesting times that paid off. So of course that boot camp like gave me like a very good foundation. And yes, it was 6 months, but it was not enough. So there was a lot of like self-learning. So I started looking for like projects, like data sets rather, on the internet. So there's Kaggle that I would use a lot, but there are other platforms that you can also use. And I would just get all these projects and I would just practice, practice, practice. So again, as someone who came from like the financial field, like I would always lean towards like financial data sets, and I'll just do like exploratory analysis. I would clean the data. I would build some models, and that was essentially me for like a whole year. And yeah, maybe to just summarize, I think what I've clearly brought out there is like choose your learning path. For me, self-taught at the beginning didn't work for me. So I went for a bootcamp, which gave me a community. But if you can also just get a community of like common-minded people, like you guys have the same shared goal and you're able to like learn together, that would also do. And you don't necessarily like need to go for a bootcamp. And then in terms of like oh, sorry, before I even go to the next thing. So like, what is it called? Like the learning, it never stopped. So like the boot camp gave me the foundation, it gave me direction, it gave me community, it gave me people who I actually still talk to till date. So this is what almost 4 years later, I still talk to these people. When I still get challenged by certain projects I'm doing on my own or I'm doing at work, these are people who I still reach out to. So they give me like a forever community. And then on the skill set side of things, honestly, it's coding and pick one language. And I would honestly recommend SQL. Like you cannot run away from SQL. So learn SQL, learn a data visualization tool, and then brush on your math and your statistics. So if you want to get like more details in terms of like what do I mean by all this? How should you learn it? How do you pace it? I have a video. I uploaded it before this that just takes you through like how would I do it again if I was to start all over again? So starting this journey of becoming a data analyst. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, essentially that's it. In terms of learning, I just settled for a boot camp and then the self-learning never stopped and I kept my community. Then the next thing is I also told you guys that within less than 4 months, I was able to land my first offer. Notice something. The learning phase, I just focused on learning. Like I was like, you know what? I don't know anything. I'm a no voice here. Let me focus on getting the skills. And once I get the skills, that's when I can start thinking of looking for job applications because no one tells you this, but job application is just it's a mountain of its own. Like, I was there learning how to code, learning all these things, learning, brushing up on my math and my statistics. And I was like, this is so hard. And I was like, I've done all this hard work. Getting a job should be easy. It's also not it's not a smooth journey, yeah. It's like a whole other journey which requires like a whole set of skill set. So now I focused on the learning bit, and then now I was ready to like focus on the job hunting bit. So what I did is, of course, like towards the end of like my learning phase, though the learning phase doesn't end per se, but let's use phases as at now. So like when I felt like, okay, I'm really getting the hang of this, I'm really getting comfortable in terms of like doing some analytics in SQL, doing some analytics in Python. As much as I say I was able to do Python and SQL, you can keep learning, yeah. But like you can keep learning as you keep applying. So that's why I'm like, pick one thing. So if it's SQL, just learn SQL, brush on your math and statistics, work on your what is called a data visualization tool, and then start applying. And then you can keep brushing up on other things and like learning other things as you go. Yeah. So when I started feeling like I'm getting comfortable in like these three areas that really matter for you to be able to land your first data role, now I also started like really looking into like LinkedIn. That is the primary tool that I use to get a job, and it's like the primary tool that I use when I'm looking for a job till date. Though of course, as you get more experience and you stay in the industry, like your reality changes a bit because like the whole concept of like networking, being headhunted becomes real. And let me tell you something, when I was first getting into this journey, I didn't think that would be me. But yeah, that is me right now. Like I'm a girly who gets headhunted and it feels nice, yeah. But anyway, story for another day, yeah. So I would go into LinkedIn and just do two things, yeah. Look for data roles in East Africa. Like I was looking at East Africa for the sake of looking at East Africa, but in my mind, I was like, I would want this job to be in Kenya, where I'm from, yeah. Though my first job actually took me to like another East African country, not Kenya, yeah. But yeah, I was looking at it just for the sake of looking at it because I was like, whether it's a role that's going to be like in Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, or Kenya, like these countries are more similar than they are different. So I was just like, let me look at it. And my goal is to just try and get a sense of like what people who are hiring data analysts here, like what are they looking for? Are they looking for SQL? Are they looking for Python? Are they looking for Power BI? And one thing that came out a lot is like they were looking for a data visualization tool, which happened to be Power BI, based on what I found. So my recommendation to you is do your own search and see what you find and go with that. So because of that, I really did take time to like hone on my Power BI skills. I did take time to start practicing like both my SQL and my Python. And yeah, it did work out because towards the end of like my first phase of learning, I was focusing on not just learning. I was now focusing on taking learnings from like my general learning phase to just be very specific in terms of like what tools, skills am I getting familiar with. And it was not just about the tools and the skills, like whether it's coding or whatnot. It was also about strengthening my domain knowledge. So I would also really take time to read about like what's going on in like the finance industry because I was very particular in terms of I was not applying for just any data roles. I was applying for data roles that would land me in finance department or like departments adjacent to it. So like business operations, like you're still going to do a bit of like finance in it, yeah. And it goes back to that thing, guys. Take a decision on what you want plan, and stick to it. Because the first decision I made is like data. And then in the learning journey, another decision that I made that I forgot to mention is I settled on analytics. I was not applying for data science jobs. I was only applying for data analyst roles, and not just data analyst roles, but data analyst roles in like finance, business operations department, because I knew I have an unfair advantage there. And it did work out for me. And I think it's one of the reasons like my journey has also been like I've moved as fast as I did, because in 4 months I did get an offer, and not just an offer, but an offer in a remote first company. And at that point, I didn't even know what that is. Like remote first, hybrid, I didn't know. Me, I was just happy to land a role, but it happened to be a role that was remote first. So yeah, I did that the role. I was like in the larger operations team, but I was specifically working with credit risk, and it was a very beautiful but humbling experience, because it's one thing to study everything you've studied, but it's one thing to actually be the person who everyone is looking at and they're like, oh, so Stacey, why is this happening? Why are we seeing increased churn? Because we want to understand why. I mean, let's see. Okay, let me say both ways. Why are we seeing increased churn? Like, what do we need to do? What do we need to correct? Or why are we seeing higher retention? We don't want it to just be a spike. We want to understand customer behavior and actually turn this into like a sustainable, repeatable process. Like I was like, what is this? But something that actually helped me is also like one of my learning methodologies. Because in the process of learning, I was doing a lot of project-based learning, which I have implied. So it was like I would take all these random data sets that I found on the internet, and I just practice, and I actually come up with like business cases and I answer. And the reality is that's actually what you're going to do when you land your first role. So yeah, it was a very humbling and very like scary experience at the same time. And at a high level, like I didn't stop learning. So I would take the challenge, I would go, I would ask for clarifying questions. And as I was doing this, I was still learning. I was still taking certifications. I was still brushing up on things that I'm not good at, things that include both like the technical and non-technical. So like when I started getting exposed to certain business metrics, whether it's things like retention, things like let's say cost of acquisition, lifetime value, I also took time to just invest on like domain knowledge, and that's something that went a long way for me. So I'll just quickly check if there's something that I've missed. So we've already covered what I did in that 1 year that I was using to just learn, what it took for me to land my role, my first ever offer in 4 months, which happened to be like a remote first role. And then I've also just mentioned that it was a very humbling, but not a very smooth experience. But I persevered. And as I've mentioned, within 3 years, I was able to grow from entry level to senior data analyst, and I'm now an analytics lead. I manage my own team, a team that I've hired, a team that I've grown from ground up. And it's a very interesting experience that we'll keep talking about. And yeah, some pointers that I just put here to just run through them to make sure that I have not left anything out was just taking a decision and sticking to it is important. And I have demonstrated the importance of this, right from sticking to data, and not just data, but data analytics. And also in terms of like the job that I was applying for, sticking to data analytics roles in a particular field, like being very intentional in like really honing those skills that would enable me learn a data analytics role in finance worked out for me. And then my learning approach. So like boot camp versus self-learning. We've already talked about that. Like for me, I did a boot camp initially, then a lot of self-learning, because the boot camp, or honestly any form of formal education, will just give you like a good foundation, a starting point. But from there, it's up to you. Then my learning methodology, project-based learning, because that's what you're going to practice. Like once you actually learn in the field, you're going to run a lot of projects. Yeah. Though we have different types of like data analysts, and we will cover that in this channel. There are data analysts who lean more towards like projects for like 100% of their time in their role, 90 or 80%. But 90, 80% is more realistic, because there are certain routine maintenance type of tasks that still have to be done. So we'll talk more about that. But yeah, there are roles that are more like a lot of maintenance, which is like more of like you maintain the dashboard, you do a lot of like ad hoc data requests. So like someone wants this, someone wants this, yeah. So like there are roles that are more heavy on that, and then they do projects here and there, but there are roles that are like more project driven. you cannot run away from it. And even if you end up a role that is more like you do a lot of like data support, data requests, those requests are still linked to a project, like something that someone somewhere is trying to achieve. So the whole concept of project-based learning is something that you cannot run away from. Then what ooh, something else that I didn't mention. So like learning methodology, so like the project-based learning. The other beautiful thing about project-based learning is this is essentially experience. So like when you do a project and you're just trying to understand like churn analysis and just reduce the rate of churn, which is of course good for a company in terms of like they're able to retain more of their clients, and the more clients they have, the more likely, the more the revenue potential. So that's like that's real life experience. If you do a project to just try and understand like any revenue leakages, if you do a project to just try and understand like, okay, this company has reached to this level and they want to grow. They want to times 200, times 5 their growth, like what next? So just looking into like some low-hanging fruit. So maybe what are the clients, customers have always requested for a certain thing, but it's not there. It's in the data. It's in the data. You can always find such insights, and such insights can always guide like the strategy that will take a company to the next level. So you see how project-based learning is not just about like you retaining, but it's something that you can actually put in your CV as like you have experience doing X, Y, and Z. And then my unfair advantage, which I don't think I'll ever go a video where I sit down video talking without mentioning it, was just like the fact that I was from like uh, business operations, finance specifically, and I leverage it during my application process. I leverage it during my learning process. So in case I was trying to do like machine learning project and I'm not quite getting it on the technical side, but I know like what is expected, like what is like the ideal scenario just from like the domain side of things, that really helped me be able to like really keep on pushing, because it was not just this hard thing that was not making sense. It was this thing that is challenging. It's not making sense, but I see the value from a domain perspective. And there are times where I've seen challenges in my domain. I'm like, oh, this can actually be solved by like a data tool or whatnot. So leveraging on your unfair advantage is key. So mine was that, like the fact that I was from certain field and I was already very knowledgeable about it. But for you, let's say you're someone who's actually studied computer science and you want to focus on data analytics, you're already very technically heavy. Like if you decide to lean more towards like data role where there's like a lot of automation, it's more data engineering heavy, like they follow a lot of like software engineering practices, you will for sure have like a high advantage compared to me. So really taking time to identify your and add your unfair advantage and zoning on into it is like a big thing that will go like a long way from you. And then the last thing is on soft skills, yeah. So I mentioned it a bit in terms of like the boot camp that I went to, actually like tried to balance it out in terms of like the best of both worlds. So getting your technical skills right, but also getting your soft skills right. So soft skills are like, how do you write your CV? And it all goes back again to project-based learning, yeah. You think you don't have any experience in data analytics. The project you built is experience. So how do you phrase it in your CV as like, yeah, I actually have experience doing X, Y, and Z, and these things work. Coming from a hiring manager, as I've mentioned, I am a strategy and analytics lead, and I currently do lead a team that I hired myself and I built from scratch. And such things do count when I'm looking for like someone to hire, someone to bring onto my team. So like you can use your projects. And then secondly, if you have some experience, yeah. So if you're someone like me and you're transitioning, maybe you came from marketing, maybe you came from business operations, maybe you came from finance, like data analytics, you do a lot of project management, yeah. You do, whether you're like the owner of the project, so you're contributing to a project, like project management is something that it will be your reality. So just pulling some of that experience of like, oh yeah, I've done this before, I've solved this problem before. Maybe you did consume the data, so it's like someone pulled the data for you and for you to just interpreting and coming up with solutions, coming out with recommendations. That is going to be part of like your role as a data analyst. And yeah, one of the videos that I also plan to do is like, what does a data analyst actually do? So like covering it all from like sourcing the data, cleaning the data, maintaining that data, building dynamic dashboards, to like prescriptive and what is called prescriptive is like prescriptive prescriptive and predictive analytics. So like just trying to predict what's likely to happen based on this information and just giving a prescription of like what's like the best way forward. These are all things that I'm going to talk about. These are all things that I'm going to cover on this channel. And the other beautiful thing about this channel is essentially our one-stop shop. Like we have technical videos if you're someone who's looking to just learn your Python, your SQL, your data visualization, getting some projects to like help you like, help you to build that muscle in terms of like doing data analytics projects. And here, telling you the softer side of things, like how did I actually get here, sharing on my pain points and how I went through them, and encouraging you to follow project-based learning and project-based learning in two fronts. So the front of actually following along and the front of actually like you've done enough following along. Now pick a data set and just challenge yourself to do something. It's all rounded. We give you everything, yeah? And yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, please do feel free to stay tuned by subscribing and even turning on the notification bell. And if there's any particular thing that you'd want to hear me talk about, do let me know. Otherwise, guys, this was a nice one. I really hope my story, my experience was something that has touched you, something that has encouraged you, something that has made you take that decision and just focus on one thing. And yeah, wishing you nothing but success. And yeah, something else that has come to mind is honestly, I would love to also talk about like various roles in the tech field and how you as a data analyst, you would actually end up working with like product managers, UI UX designer, and how you interface with like other stakeholders, whether it's like the growth team, the marketing team, the finance team. Exciting things coming your way. Otherwise, for today, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. Bye.